Welcome to the Art Studio Insights podcast, where you demystify the creative process and exchange ideas with career-minded artists. We are your hosts, Adriana M.A. and
Jackie Sanders. We're two emerging artists sharing forth the advice and business lessons we have learned along our journey.
On today's episode, we are excited to partner with our friends at Triangle Artworks for an exciting guest presentation. Triangle Artworks is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing a wide variety of services and programs for artists and art organizations. Here's our conversation about loans for art businesses with JaLisha Richmond.
So excited today to be diving into the topic of loans for art businesses with JaLisha.
Yeah, and a quick introduction about JaLisha, and then we'll let her start her beautiful presentation. JaLisha is the Director of Lending at Thread Capital, a Raleigh-based company that connects small businesses to opportunities. She has extensive experience creating and leading collaborative networks with a background working in the nonprofit sector. JaLisha currently provides consulting services for North Carolina agencies and nonprofits, including creative small businesses, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you, JaLisha, for joining us. We are so excited for your presentation today and to learn more about what you do and what options are available for small business creatives. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. But as stated, I'm JaLisha Richmond, and I'm the Director of Lending here at Thread Capital. And this presentation will go over how to think like a lender and giving more insight to the lending process and debt financing in the small business space, and specifically the art space. And can you guys currently see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. It still says loading on my side. Alrighty. And anytime you guys can ask any questions, feel free to interrupt me. As they stated, I do kind of want this to be a discussion. I'm here to kind of answer the questions you guys have. So feel free. Alrighty. So just a little bit more about my organization. So I'm with Thread Capital. We were started in May of 2018. So we're approaching our 4-year mark. We've done this for more than those 4 years. Our institute is based out of the North Carolina Rural Center that was doing small business lending for around 31 years. So we're based in Raleigh, 9 full-time staff members, and we cover the entire 100 counties of North Carolina. And as of 2020, we are a certified CDFI. This is just our mission and vision statement. I'll read the vision to you, which is, at Thread, we believe everyone in North Carolina who has a viable business idea that they want to start or grow should be able to have the resources to thrive. So this is our lovely team. So this is the 8 full-time staff members that we have, and then we also have an executive assistant that is a part-time staff member. So if you do come into our office and have any questions, you will probably interact with one of these lovely 8 folks. Our team is super small. And out of the team, Camila Molina and Christopher Lovegreen are loan officers. So if you do inquire about a loan product with Thread Capital, those will be the folks that are helping out. And so the services we provide, and getting to why you guys are actually here, are that we provide 3 different things. We focus on them, we call them our 3 C's, which are capital, coaching, and connections. So we'll go a lot more into that capital piece and how to acquire that capital. And then the other things that we focus on a lot is coaching. We understand that small business ownership can sometimes be siloed. So I'm very happy that you guys are a part of this community so that you're not as siloed, that you have those connections. But our goal is making sure that if you do not have these connections, you are well connected in this network. So that's how we provide that coaching piece, that connections piece, and connecting you with not only organizations like Triangle Artworks or with the art studios, but then also with other like counselors and TA providers that way. And then we do ourselves here at Thread Capital provide more low-touch coaching. If it's like you have a business plan and you need someone to review it, we're able to look at that. If you're going through the loan process, we're able to kind of help you like gather those documents as well. And then we also, part of our coaching provide consultations and services as this to kind of help you prepare for that lending process. So I know that was our 3 C's, but then there's also 6 more C's that go into like credit, lending, and debt, like debt financing. So the 6 C's of credit include all of these. I'll go into a little bit more on each individual slide, but overall they include credit, collateral, cash flow, capacity, conditions, and character. So the first C is credit. And so all of these, we'll kind of break them up with like what a lender is looking for, how you can prepare as a small business owner, and then how we at Thread and also our network can help you. So what a lender is looking for is the individual's history of repaying their credit and debt obligations. And also we're looking for if there are any hiccups in your personal credit or business credit, that it can be explained, because when it comes to debt financing, it does more than likely, our products definitely, we look at personal credit, but we want to make sure that you can kind of understand that piece. And then how you can prepare as a small business owner is to know your credit history. Like federal law in general allows you to obtain a copy of your credit report every 12 months, but due to COVID right now, you can actually request your credit report for all 3 bureaus every month to kind of understand what is happening. So one way you can prepare is to know what's happening with your own credit. And then if there's any hiccups in your credit history, to kind of have an explanation for that, and then also be open and honest about what is happening and how you plan on or what you've done to eradicate that. And then what Thread does in organizations like us, what we do is we analyze your credit situation with doing your initial consultation, and then we help you identify any issues that may arrive and kind of also walk through some ways to mitigate those things as well. And then if there's like poor credit, we also help connect you to resources that can kind of help, because we're not credit counselors. But what we can do is help connect you to those that may be a credit counselor. And then the next piece is collateral. And when it comes to collateral, what lenders are looking for is the basic of, if you're unable to pay the loan back, what else do I have to secure this loan in case of default? And what we're also looking for is like skin in the game. We a lot of times look at collateral as, if you're willing to use something you own as collateral, it kind of shows your support and your idea behind your business. Like you support your business, so then therefore you're willing to risk some things, because we're risking our capital. What are you also risking in the situation? So kind of like that risk mitigation. And how you as a small business owner can prepare is to understand what lenders want, and just kind of like look at like what collateral options are available. Don't hold back those assets, because it's kind of viewed as a lack of commitment. And then a lot of lenders are looking for first liens, but then second liens and other things are available. So more is that research piece, is looking at like who you're looking at as a lender, kind of seeing what they can accept and what their needs are. And then how we can help includes working with the small business owners to identify the most appropriate type of collateral for the loan based on the size of the loan and the risk of the loan. And typically the types of collateral that we look at include property. So that may be personal property like a home, or if your business also has like a office and you own that property, we look at that. We look at vehicles, equipment, and other assets, just depending, once again, it's sized based on the loan. Then one of the most important ones when it comes to our lending and credit and things of that nature is cash flow. So what we're looking at as a lender is what cash is available to service this obligation on top of your existing obligations. We want to make sure that not only can you repay us, which is important to us, but we also want to make sure you can still take care of yourself and your household and things of that nature. So making sure there's additional cash flow or cash to service this obligation. We're looking at how predictable your cash flow is. So if your business is kind of seasonal, or if it's like cyclical, we kind of look at those things to kind of figure out what is the best way of going about this. And then we're also looking at like how stable the cash flow is. So is there like how predictable and then how stable it is? Are there big swings? If those swings can be explained and things of that nature. So as a lender, what we'll do is work with you on predicting that piece. And then also, is there a margin for error? So if something goes wrong, can you kind of recover and things of that nature? And then how you can prepare as a small business owner is looking at what's the most important things, like how do they, like we're looking for how do we get our funds back, and being prepared to treat this as an important piece. So we'll talk about 6 C's of credit, but that cash flow piece is the biggest part, because most lenders, we're lending out money, so we want to get repaid in money. Like even though the collateral's there, none of us are like in the collateral business. So we're looking at that cash flow to make sure that it's successful, just not only so we can be successful, but then also you as the individual can be successful as well. And the other ways you can be prepared is gather your tax returns, bank statements, making sure that you also, one important thing when it comes to like those bank statements is making sure that, I know a lot of times with small businesses, there's a lot of like co-mingling of business and personal. So making sure that even when you're gathering those bank statements, that there's some type of separation of personal expenses and business expenses, and being able to explain those to a lender. And then if you have like traditional sources of income, so you have pay stubs, W-2s, gathering those things. And then for your business, making sure you're creating those internal financials. So that's like a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, which shows like your revenues and your expenses of the business. And then also like if your business has not been profitable, or if it's like a startup, so therefore there's no time for it to be profitable, what we'll look at is that global cash flow. And what global cash flow is it takes both your personal income and your business income and put those two things together to do like an overall overarching picture. And not saying that this business, like the loan can be supported solely on the business, but also including you as the small business owner as well. And then how we can help, or how any lender can help, is provide templates to kind of get those things in order. So when it comes to a balance sheet or a P&L, profit and loss, well, that is a P&L, projections, helping gather those templates and creating those templates with you and walking you through that. Because a lot of times, small business owners, artists, like they've been artists, they've been running the business themselves, but not a lot of times understanding the financials behind it. So just sometimes it's just that education piece of like what is looked at. So thank you for attending this, because that is also one part of that education piece. And then also just helping like gather those documents. Alrighty. And then the next piece is capacity, which is another one of the C's. And it's what the lender's looking for is the business owner's experience and knowledge to launch and run this business. So with the artist, we will want to see how long you've been doing this. What is your expertise in this field or this sector of art? And then also to see if you have a network, if you have like, it is like sometimes siloed. But we want to see if you have staff, a board, other artists, a part of a coalition. Why we look at that piece is just to see if you have like some support. If you have like a network, you can learn from the mistakes of others, and it's not like you creating the same mistakes that could have been missed. So we're looking at that in your capacity. So not only the capacity of the individual, but then also the capacity of the individual's network. And then how you can prepare is to be able to articulate your experience, any like licenses you need, any certifications and things of that nature. And then also you can start by putting that team together. So making sure you're making those connections, you're joining those associations, you're attending meetings like this, you're having business counseling and coaching and things of that nature. So we can see that you have that network, that you've done some of the groundwork behind it. And how we can help is helping to connect you to those resources, and then also giving some pointers of like what may benefit you. And then we also have a large network of consultants that can kind of also help with those, not so much like artist skill things, but then also when it comes to like accountants, if you're looking for like lawyers and like legal advice, we can kind of help make sure to connect you in that space as well. Then another one is conditions. So this one looks, what a lender's looking for is the current market and demand for your product or your service. How good are the margins? And then like, is there long running viability in the industry? So overall, looking at how is the world currently performing? Like in COVID, one thing that we were looking at a lot of times was if the business can be run in like that current model, and then also like how flexible and like resilient the business owner was, like how much could you pivot. If you were doing like a lot of in-person events over the last 2 years, there has not been a lot of opportunity for that. So we would want to see if there was some type of way to be flexible, resilient, and kind of change up your business model to pivot towards that. So that's the kind of things that we're looking for. And then also how you can prepare is start thinking of that resiliency plan, including like a business plan. A business plan, most times people do those in the beginning of their business. We like to look at them as like a living report, something that needs to be like revisited every so often. Not saying that you need to rewrite the entire plan, but we understand that like when you initially sit down and make a business plan, that's your ideas before you started the business. Things change. COVID happens. Things need to pivot. So making sure you're going back and reevaluating that, making the changes that you need to. Also being able to give any lenders like the required information on your industry. A lot of times, like myself, I work in small business. I cover the entire state. I cover a myriad of businesses. So more than likely, I may not understand your business, which is not always my job to understand like your individual business, but for you to be able to articulate your business to me and help me understand that. So then we kind of work together to understand that piece. And how we can help is we can once again provide a template for a business plan, walk you through those things of like how to be resilient. And then if you need a little bit more assistance, also connecting you with business counselors who can help you based on your needs, requirements, and things of that nature. And then also helping connect you with folks like Triangle Business Works or the art studios. And then the last one that I really enjoyed that most lenders are just kind of like, this is not really one that's financial, but I think it's a super important one and it's more character. I love to tell my team, and like the way that I lead my team is that we're lending to people. Like they are small business owners, but we are lending to people. So overall character is a high one in my book, and it's more of what we're looking for is the borrower honest, reliable, responsible, and how well do they do when they're faced with challenges. So how you as the individual can prepare for this is making sure you take the time to respond to requests and respond as honestly and consistently as possible. We also understand that you're running a whole business. So if it's like there's going to be some delay, communicate that delay, saying that I have a project coming up. It may take me a couple days to get to this. That is totally okay. We all get busy, but communication is super important. And then also making sure that if you have like clients or suppliers that can provide references, that also is super helpful. So gathering those success stories, which is also just helpful for you running your business. If you have those reviews and things of that nature. And then have examples of like the innovations you've done, the adaptability, the resiliency that you've done in the past, so that we can show that you have been able to do that. And how we can help is we'll take the time to listen, to get to know you and your business and help you anywhere you are in the journey. We like to meet our small business owners where they are. And then we can kind of walk through like, what are your goals? What do you plan on going? And take a individual approach to that. And then overall, what we want to do is also build a high level of trust. And so the clients understand that not only am I your lender, but we can be a integral piece of your business, helping you that even if it's something that is not quite what I can do, I like to create a no wrong door policy. So if it's like, if you need coaching assistance or you need marketing assistance, not saying that I'm going to be the expert that provides all of that, but I can provide that connectivity to the things that are needed. So that is my quick ramble on what I have to provide. Any questions right now?
JaLisha, that was amazing. I have a ton of questions personally, but if anyone is listening to this live and wants to drop questions in the chat, we will be asking those at this time as well. But right off the bat, as an artist myself, Adriana and I are both working artists, like we said earlier, with studios in downtown Raleigh. I'm curious if there was a loan that I was looking to get. Is there any loan that's too small? Like, is there a minimum that you would have to ask for? And what kind of information would you need from us in terms of the purpose of what we need the loan for? You may touch on it. I know you touched on it a little bit, but my head as an artist, I'm so used to applying for grants where they say, hey, you have to have your entire project laid out, your entire budget, how you're going to be allocating this money. So is it the same process for a loan, or you just say, I want X amount, and then once it's approved, the artist gets to do what they want with it? How does that work?
Yeah. So to the first question, is there a loan that's too small? Overall, there's a network. So if you go to a bank, yes, there is a loan that's too small. However, with our organization and other organizations like ourselves, the smallest loan that we can make, or like in our policy, is we make loans anywhere from $500 up to $100,000.
Okay,
Going
great.
to a bank, if you're looking for a $500 loan, they would try to say a credit card or do a personal loan. But we're able to do it that small. And then to the other point of what we need to know is, one disheartening thing is like when someone gets to that client consultation piece and they ask how much, I'll say, how much money do you need? And they're like, how much can you give me? I do want to know, like, what is your budget?
Right.
Understanding of, like, you thought out like what you need the funds for, and not just say, okay, you can do $100,000, I'll spend $100,000. I never tell clients to take out more money than they need, because this is a debt. You don't want to like super load yourself with debt unnecessarily. So it's more like, hey, I need this project, I need working capital to do this, and whatever that this is, have that budget, and then say, this is what I'm looking for. And then we can kind of help put you into that place. There may be in the conversation a part of, have you thought about, you may need additional working capital outside of that to cover any gaps? But if you come with a budget, that's the most important piece. And then we can kind of walk from there.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, especially because even from the presentation and all the amazing information you shared today, it's clear that you really value that relationship with the person that your team is lending money to. You're not just trying to catch people and not being able to pay it back. You're really advising them on, this is the best thing that you should be doing for your business, and almost protecting people sometimes from getting in over their head and just saying, lend me $100,000 and hopefully I can pay it back, because that's not good for anyone involved. So I think that's amazing that you really focus on that relationship, and especially from the consulting aspect, really make sure that you're doing what's best for these small business owners.
Yeah. I think Beth had a question about like common mistakes.
Oh
So
yeah, that's a great question. What are some success stories with small businesses and loans? And also, are there common mistakes that folks make when coming to ask for a loan?
yeah, so the first one is not having a budget, or having like an intention of like what they plan on spending those funds for. And then another, especially as someone starting out, or someone that's a lot of times at least starting out in like the lending space, because even if you run your business for a while and you bootstrapped your business and self-finance, it's a whole different market when you're looking for like lending and financing from an outside source. So it's important no matter what stage you are, you're developing those habits and those good habits early. So, like, once again, that separating out your business and your personal. I know a lot of times that may be hard because you are your business. But overall, if I'm looking at a business account, I don't want to see every meal it is. So making sure you're separating out that piece and understanding, and even if it's just like two separate personal accounts and you're like kind of paying yourself and transferring, like setting up those habits earlier. We as a smaller lender can walk through that and we can back out those things. But if you're going to a larger bank, a lot of times they don't take the time, or they don't have the time and like the ability or flexibility within their product to like separate out your business and personal from you. So we try to make sure we're doing that and teaching those habits early on. Some other mistakes come with some folks when it comes to like bootstrapping and doing it alone, super great. But then sometimes they wait too far down the line to get that financing or get capital from other folks. And then they're really strained at that point. They've utilized all of their funds and then they're like, hey, I need a loan to cover this piece. It's more planning ahead, making sure you're thinking about what is happening with your business, that you're not too far down the rabbit hole when you're like, please help me out. But it's more you're preparing for that piece. So making sure you're constantly thinking about the resiliency of your business and thinking about like any innovations and changes of your business. And then to the success story part, I'm trying to think of one that's more like in the art space. A lot of our businesses, also when it comes into like our art space, is always like a different type of business, and it's more us learning like the best way of doing it. But we do have one of my favorite clients is an artist who does mixed media work in Western North Carolina. She's actually been a client of like the Rural Center way before me coming to the Rural Center, and just being over like being able to see her growth. Typically her loans have been like smaller, and it's more like to bring in working capital to buy additional easels. At one point she was selling these dolls she was making and buying like the materials to buy the equipment for the doll making process. And then overall being able to see her to scale the business, to be able to bring more things into her business and like just kind of diversify her offerings. And then even in COVID, like part of it was advertising, because she wasn't able to do as many like in-person events, but it was more moving to like social media platforms and like having to learn that piece of the market, because she was used to like in her community being able to go to fairs and markets, but it was like now she had to rely on making a website and having like retail in that space. But being able to kind of walk with her and navigate that space was super amazing, and seeing her grow and continue.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
Yeah, and earlier in the presentation, you were talking about the 6 C's of credit. It sounded like credit and cash flow were some of the most important ones, but from your perspective, if an artist is like, I don't even know which one to start, which one would you say carries hands down the most weight? Like, if this one is not good, do not cross go. Do not,
Yeah.
like don't even call. Like,
Cash flow,
need to fix
you can
this.
still call, but cash flow is the one that is the most important. Because credit we can work around, because credit most times is just like, how do you pay bills when you have the funds, and how do you pay it when you don't? So that one is kind of understandable. However, the cash flow piece, if there's no income coming in, there's no way we can see the business like this loan being supported. And sometimes it may be like cutting back product lines, changing of the market. If you have, because sometimes we have clients come to us and they're saying they need additional capital to throw into this product line, and it's more that product line is just not successful. You may have to like change it up. This may not be what's selling. Even though it may be your favorite thing. I know a lot of times you have like products just like this just will not work. And just try to think of other innovations. And it's not always like just throwing more capital into that piece, but it's more like, hey, maybe we have you talk to this person who's also been through this. and you guys can think of ways to utilize what you have to get going forward. But the most important one is that cash flow piece, being being able to repay the loan is definitely the biggest piece. And
Yeah.
Cynthia, I definitely agree. That's hard for any business owner to hear. And anyone, like, it's also hard for the lender to tell someone, especially if I could tell like you have a passion behind it, to be like, that's not gonna quite, like, there's not a lot of, like, that's that condition piece of like working through like what is the market, who's going to buy it type deal.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like you said, that is tough because if you're like, "Oh, but there's this new product line that I'm adding and I wanna do bags that have my pictures of my paintings in it," but if there's no proof that it can sell at all, then it's like, maybe just, do it a little bit at a time before you try to
Yeah.
scale it into full-blown
I usually try to
production.
talk to my business owners, no matter what type of business, about like scaling. Because a lot of times people are just like, I want to produce 100,000 of these. And it's like, hey, can we produce 100 of these?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's
See
see
how
if
they
you have the
sell.
let's see if you have the client base and then build from there, which is always a good thing of just like picking it up and going so that you don't oversaturate yourself or you have way too many, then you're trying to figure out like how to get rid of it, but more like start small, create that demand and keep on going.
Well, with that, I do have a quick follow-up. So, say in the case that we're talking about expanding into a different area, the example we just gave is of actual production of something that you would sell. But how about when you, as a business owner, you actually need professional help in order to scale, in order to do all the other things? So it's not something you can sell that I can show you on a balance sheet and say, this is what it looks like. This is how many units I sold. Now give me a loan to make more. What if I'm just as a business owner, small, small artist business going, okay, I need to do upgrades to my website. I need help with accounting or, whatever it is, all the other non-arty bits of the business. And I actually need to hire somebody. How do I even prove that it makes sense for me to get a loan for something I'm not going to sell? However, having that help could help me sell more to pay you back.
Yeah, so
Sorry,
it is,
complicated way of saying it,
yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
definitely a chicken or egg situation. But what we look at is the units that you're producing
Mhm.
and like their availability to cover some of the cash flow. And then what we can do is towards projection. So it's saying like, okay, right now I'm able to produce 50 units. However, if I have someone helping with my marketing, I can produce 100 and then work that way. Or then also a lot of times it's more you need a little bit of working capital to cover an accounting expense or to kind of help supplement that piece. We'll look at the overall, like, what is your in goal production, and then work backwards of like what we can afford. But it definitely, a lot of times, is a lot of small business owners is setting up the business piece to make sure that it can function so that you as the artist can do the rest of the business, making sure that you have that help behind you. And then sometimes it's also like connecting you with other resources, because there are sometimes grants that are available to help in those spaces, and being able to connect to those things or resources or different ways of looking at them.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like we were saying earlier, I'm really valuing more of that relationship with, okay, you might not be ready for a loan right now. Maybe start with a grant. Let's touch base in 4 months from now and see where you are. And then maybe at that point, you'll be at a better position, which I think, especially as artists and business owners, that is a big conversation with building that character and dependability in the eyes of other businesses. So, would you say that there's a certain amount of time that is seen as more favorable, of kind of like a threshold of, okay, you're clearly established, you're becoming more trustworthy in terms of the eyes of lending money to, or even from a sales standpoint, like, hey, you need a solid, consistent 6 months worth of sales or a certain amount of sales to where it would make sense to show that you're successful or supportive?
Yeah. So with Thread, we're able to work with someone that like is a startup. So like someone who just incorporated and just starting out. We would look for like outside income. But overall, we're able to work with someone like in the very beginning. But what we do look at is that relationship and just kind of looking at, because each business is different, and just understanding like how like flexible, how seasonal your market is. So that's a one-on-one type of deal. But what we could do is like, if you're coming and you're saying like, I need a $50,000 loan now, I'm like, hey, we can't really prove that now. It's not more a no, but it's like, hey, can we start with $1,000? We can start with $1,000 loan, help you build up. So like, okay, I know you have all of these goals, aspirations. How about what could we do if we did a $5,000 loan? What can we start with that? Get that piece, work on that working capital, start building up the business, and then continue to go down the line. We're always able to reevaluate a plan. Like in our policy, we say 6 months, because that's usually like the amount of time you need for something to get rolling. Like the first month, you're still trying to like onboard, get things together, trying to test out a market. But however, if you and your business are doing better, we're able to reevaluate that. And it's not like if you did a $5,000 loan with us, you have to pay all $5,000 back before looking at a new loan. If you get a $5,000 loan with us, you do 6 months of payments, or you start paying, and it's just like, actually, now I need additional capital to do something else. We're able to look at that piece to kind of help keep you going. So it's just going back to like meeting the business where they are, meeting the business owner where they are.
Yeah, follow up to that one. So, without getting too technical, of course, are you saying it works more like a line of equity, a line of credit that you can add on to it, or are these like individual amounts that you're requesting with their own separate terms and payment schedules?
So you
Sorry, I
almost
went
Yeah.
a little nerd
Yeah,
there,
you
but I
almost
had to
like
ask.
gain credibility and reputation of trust by little increments and then little increments.
Yeah. So they are not, so we don't do lines of credit. They are just installment loans. However, we're able to refinance that loan to add additional capital to it. We're not as sophisticated as some lenders. Our team is small. We have to do all of our disbursements. So it's not, I would hate if we had lines of credit, because that would just be me all day going through each
Yeah.
transaction.
I need another $50.
And I'd be like, can you make them bigger? But what we do look at is we evaluate it. It's just okay, we need to add additional an additional $1,000 to this loan, and we're able to reevaluate that piece.
Okay, that's perfect. And with that, then you would then like figure out the terms and if you need to make the term longer or shorter, etc., based on the needs. With that being said, do you do any loans for construction in this case? It's specifically for a studio building on existing property. So say some of us artists, we work out of a building owned by somebody else. Perhaps the house that we live in does have enough land in order to build literally the place we're going to work out of. Is that something you cover, or is that something we have to work with a different lender? Just
So
to ask.
depending on the size of it, so Threads loans only go up to $100,000. And our overall market are for those with lower assets, lower credit, and because our interest rates and things are higher. But what we could do, if you're looking to do like a real estate loan, there are lenders better suited for that. And what we do is help connect you to those folks. My goal is never to sell someone like, yes, Thread is amazing. I want everyone else to think Thread is amazing. But overall, my goal is making sure that you as a small business owner get the resources you need and connecting you to like the best available resources you can get. So if it is like a real estate loan, like SBA, like building loans are a lot better suited for that. So helping connect you to a lender that can do that SBA loan is definitely like just a call away of just saying like, hey, this is what I want to do. And like, that's a conversation that you can have with anyone on my team and just saying, I need help finding the SBA lender who can help me do this loan.
That's perfect. I'm glad you work as a resource network, because definitely for some folks, they'll be building this thing from the ground up. For some people, it might be going to one of those places that sell sheds out of their parking lot and being like, ooh, that garage shed could actually work at a studio. It's interesting what artists will work out of any hole. Some of the roof will just about do.
Our creative brains work in several aspects. But I love that too, in terms of course, today's discussion is through Triangle Artworks and focused on fellow North Carolina creative businesses. But we do have listeners on the podcast all over the country and international. So I'm sure even these fundamental principles that we're talking about, they can then educate themselves on to approach companies in their area or larger banks to understand the difference between a few of these loans. And so I know we touched on it earlier with some success stories, but also struggles that artists have. But is there one thing in particular that you find with artists really struggle with demonstrating? Obviously, keeping the finance account separate is a huge aspect, but is there something else in terms of what they may lack or in terms of being prepared for seeking a loan that you would say is the top priority, no matter what company they're approaching?
Yeah, I think those internal financials a lot of times are so outside of just like the simple of having a separate bank account, but also having that understanding your revenue margins. So understanding like how much you're selling your products for, what's coming in, and then also the expenses and having those drawn out. Because a lot of times with most small business owners, they're used to running the business, they're used to doing the business, they're not used to the back office things. They're not used to that bookkeeping piece. So making sure you have that bookkeeping piece there, because that is important. That shows your cash flow, which is once again what we said, the most important piece. So making sure you have those things in line and they're up to date, because a lot of times people get so busy in running the business. It's like right now is typically a good time because it's like almost tax time. So people have gotten their books together to do their taxes. And then when you talk to them in December, they're like, I don't update my books until January. And it's just like, hey, I need like when we talk to you, we want to see like the last 2 months. So making sure you have those updated year long is definitely something that artists and small business owners definitely struggle with, of making sure their financials and their internal financials between tax periods are up to date.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's one thing we talk about a lot on the podcast and share with fellow business owners. So we're glad that you reinforce that as well. But I did see in your presentation as well that you guys offer a business plan template. Is that something that you'd be willing to share? Because I think that is something that a lot of artists would really benefit from. Because like you said, we go into the business wanting to make artwork and sell our products and just paint in our studio all day, because as a professional artist, that's what we think it'll be. But you also need that business side of it. And it can be, and it is such an empowering feeling once you know those numbers, once you lay it out, and having a business plan template is an amazing resource that we would love to be able to share with people.
Yeah, I can definitely get you one that works. Because a lot of times when people think of business plans, they also get very overwhelmed because they're like, it's a 20-page document. I need to tell them everything that's going to happen. Honestly, like at my level of lending, I don't need 20 pages of words. What I need to understand is that you as the business owner understand your business, you understand your customer market, you understand how to do those things, and being able to paint that to me. If you can tell me that in a page, that is better for me because that's only one page to read.
We all have limited time, so make it easier for someone else.
So we usually go with like a lean canvas motto. So it's more like, what is the important parts? Because a lot of times people just think the more robust is the better. And it's just like, no, like overall, because honestly, your business plans are very much living documents.
Yeah.
They're going to change. They're going to like pivot. So I don't want it to be like too strenuous. And you're like, I just spent the last 3 months writing this business plan. And it's just like, and then today I have to change up my business. But we can definitely, I'll be able to send you guys a template to include. And I'll also share my PowerPoint as well.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that both of those resources are linked when we share the recording of today's talk in the show notes.
Yeah, and that would be amazing. And you just gave me a flashback. I'm from generation, that thing was 150 pages in business school.
Oh, no.
So essentially what you're telling me is there used to be this thing. I mean, it was slide after slide after slide, but one of them was essentially the summary And it was like maybe 1 or 2 pages. So what you're telling me is all you want is the summary one with some bank statements, cash flow, profit loss, and
Yeah, like with larger loans, that more robust document is needed because it's more like, especially if you're looking for someone to like provide equity into your business, they need to understand that a lot more. Overall, my goal is to understand that you understand your business and that if you have I'm not going to turn it down. Like, I'm going
Yeah.
to have a slight moment of, I have to read all of this. However, but overall, I don't want people to, because sometimes that is a barrier to entry for some folks. Like when I say I'll need a business plan for a startup, they're like, oh, I have to write this whole like robust document. It's like, no, that's not what I need. I just need to understand that you understand your business, which is the most important piece.
okay. One of the questions that we got is, are there artists who should not be looking for a loan?
Um, Not that I can think of. I think the biggest thing is sometimes artists, there are other sources of financing. So what we've talked about mostly is debt financing. If you don't have like cash flow, debt financing may not be what you need, or debt financing is not what you need because you don't have the cash flow to repay that debt financing.
Right.
So depending on the type of business, equity may be, so like looking for an equity investor, kind of hard to find, but an equity investor may be what you need. Or looking at like crowdfunding models. And a lot of time like artists can do that depending on like what type of product it is, because you can get the community around you involved. So there's a lot of like crowdfunding sources like Kiva,
Kickstarter.
Fundly, and things of that nature that also work. So being sure to be innovative in like the best ways of funding your business and like what is to the best of your ability as well.
And with that, does it really matter if you're structured as a sole proprietor as opposed to if you're a partnership or an LLC, a single member LLC, I should specify?
No. So what we look at is the structure of the business, unless it's like 10 people that all have equal ownership, like that. Like if it's a co-op, that makes it a little bit harder. And then we need like someone who has like corporate power to be able to take out that loan. But if it's like a single member or a sole proprietor, we just need whoever has at least 20% of any loan that I've seen thus far, any business loan, anyone with more than 20% business ownership has to sign on the loan. So something to be important is like if you're going into business with someone, just like any other relationship, knowing your partner. Because I have had situations where one partner has set themselves up really well. They have the cash flow, they worked on their credit. I think I froze.
You're good on this then.
Okay. Um, they like one partner has done all the things to have all their ducks in a row. The other partner, their ducks are all over the place. So understanding that
No ducks.
The ducks,
you
ducks
don't
are walking around the pond, jumping in the ponds. Going
correct. You don't want to get like you and your partner. You don't want it to be you and your partner comes to my office and then I'm telling you that we can't do this because your partner doesn't have their things together. So make sure you understand that piece is super important as well. Like if there's partnership, but the overall structure of it does not matter.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And I think another big thing that if you're going into business by yourself or with a partner is a huge thing to think about. But of course, as you've talked about in the presentation a little bit earlier, the looming conversation of how COVID has affected businesses and loans in the past 2 years. How has that changed the way that maybe the lending relationship is? Has it affected the types of loans or maybe the things that are required for loans? So if someone had gotten a loan in the past 5 years ago, are there new things now that they may have to think about?
So I think overall is COVID has definitely had a major effect on lending. In our space, it's more we're looking at the resiliency of businesses. So that piece of like the character piece about like how well do you face challenges, how flexible you are, is super important. Just because we know things are constantly changing, and we've just been reminded that things are constantly changing. So we want to see how you're navigating your business, how you're pivoting your business. Are you thinking of different mottos? Do you have different, like, even if you're doing the same like type of media, like, do you have different revenues? So are you just, if you're selling art, are you doing festivals and doing online? We're looking at those type of things, just making sure your the resiliency of your business is important, and you've set yourself up for that.
Well, they do say millionaires have at least 7 income streams, so it sounds like artists should too. And be able to prove to you, or to the lending institution, what each of those looks like and how much money's been made on each, so that way, kind of like you were saying, you can prove which of those lines is justified in getting more money for expansion and scale. So that is
Yes.
amazing. So obviously we're talking all kinds of businessy things and also going into the actionable bits. What is one piece of advice on something that a creative, whatever their artistic discipline is, could put into effect, say today, to prepare themselves for requesting a loan in the near future? What is the one thing that you're like, look, if all the ducks, like we talked about, are all over the place, this is the first duck that you need to line up? Because obviously you can say cash flow is important, but there's a lot of things that happen before that money comes in. So what's something else not related to that flow coming in that, creatives can do today to get started and get organized, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's making sure you're separating out the personal and the business, and then also making sure that you have that network. So continuing to stay involved with things like this podcast, Triangle Artworks, making sure you're building out your network so you can continue to learn. I think it's an overall education piece. It's super important so that once you get to the lending space, you're well informed, well connected, because those connections are super important. So if you have like Beth in your corner, she can help you navigate that space. If you have people who've done this, they can kind of help you navigate that space. So I think overall, developing your network, whoever that may be, if it's other artists, if it's people working in different disciplines, just so you can have expertise to kind of bounce around and learn from their mistakes, super important. I think that's one of the best things, no matter where you are in the process, is making sure you have that network of support, so that you can continue to prosper as a business.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today. I see in the comments here, everyone is loving all the things that you've shared with us today. So in terms of building that relationship, thank you for shouting out the Art Studio Insights podcast of what people may be listening to the recording of today. Triangle Artworks, we absolutely love partnering with them, and they have amazing programs throughout the year. And JaLisha, where can people find you and contact you about if they have more questions or are inquiring about getting a loan themselves? Where can they contact you?
Yeah. So once again, I'm JaLisha, and I'm with Thread Capital. Our website is www.thread, so threadcap.org. I put it in the chat already, but when you send it out, you can also just put those notes. So from our website, and then my email is the same thing, JaLisha, JaLisha @threadcap.org, which is the best way to contact.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, JaLisha. As always, if you're listening to this recording, all of the resources that we talked about in today's episode, including the presentation, the business plan template, and JaLisha's contact information, as well as links to Triangle Artworks and the amazing programming that they do, will be linked in the show notes, as well as links to all of our other podcast episodes.
And if you want to stay connected with Jackie and I in between episodes and share what you've learned, maybe there's additional questions that we can share with JaLisha, you can find Jackie and I on social media. I'm at Amate Art across all platforms.
And I'm at J Sanders Studio on all platforms. So thank you so much for listening and for everyone coming today. We'll talk to you next time.